So I got the carburetor off. There's not much to it. Just little 7/16 nuts, 2 brackets, heat tube for the choke and the fuel line, and the tube on the back. I did break it. I'll have to try and patch it somehow, try and fix it with a little tube, a little copper tube. And I think that was it. And here's the carburetor. I mean, it is gummed up. And just as I thought, like I've said, those secondaries aren't opening. They should have opened. They should have mechanically opened up there. They're just seized up. That's for the choke. So tear this thing down. I'll pressure wash it first and then I'll tear it down and see if I can get it in the parts washer. I haven't got a basket for it yet, but maybe I'll just stick it in a bag. I've got a couple of little cloth bags I can probably put it in. I want to get that parts washer going. Had to have a bit of a clean up too. There's junk laying everywhere. So it's just a carburetor today. If I can get that carb cleaned up pretty quick, I may just put some fuel in it and see if it'll fire. I could actually just dump fuel in here. These 2 tubes here, if you get a little, where are we? I have a little squirt bottle here somewhere that I fill up with gas. Where is it? I'm still trying to find stuff since I've moved my garage around. Can't find it now that I need it. Can't find it. Oh well. I think you guys know what I mean. It's just one of those little squeeze bottles with a tip on it. You can actually fill the carburetors through there instead of trying to crank it. Crank and crank and crank to try and get the fuel up. That's how you prime it. It just fills the bowls up. Once they're full, you just see a little bit of fuel splurting out and you know they're ready to go. God, where are those bottles? I had like 5 or 6 of them. Oh well. Well, let's get this carburetor torn down. It's pretty basic, just a bunch of screws there. There's one in here as well. This one here, that's for the air cleaner as well. Just tear it down, and then we'll clean it and reassemble it, and I'll get rid of that secondary needle and seat. I want to see what year it is. I think it's original because it's still got the original clamps on it. It hasn't got the screw and regular aftermarket hose clamps. So I'll get this off and I'll see what's on the other side of it. Somebody put that on upside down, but see what it is. Clean in there. I looked down the manifold. The air cleaner was still on it, so I had to get my vacuum and vacuum all that stuff up, but it's clean in there. Yes, that's a little heat riser for your choke, and that's what that was for too. That's actually a steel pipe. I thought it was a rubber hose, but so it takes in the hot air from the intake manifold and blows it up into the choke, and when the engine gets hotter, it releases a bimetal spring, and that opens your choke. So get that carburetor torn down, and we're nearly there. Got the tag off, and that is the original carburetor off this car, so that's cool. D1 1971. As you can see, I've got the carburetor dismantled, pressure washed as much as I could off it. Yeah, stripped it down. There's not much to these, just a couple of jets in here, idling screws here, the idle mixture screws, and just accelerator pump. You can actually bring these back to life. I soak them in some thinners for a while and they actually come back, because this one's rock hard. And just the nuts and bolts and screws, some brackets. Got the jets and stuff inside this little container, so I'll throw that in there. And I did remove that secondary needle and seat that sits in here, so I'll show you how to get rid of that. There is a little kit you can buy that actually has a little bolt that goes in there, a little cap, but I just solder mine shut. I take the needle out and just close them up. Gaskets go. I'm trying to do this on a budget, so I've got the gasket off in one piece, so I can reuse that gasket. Got the choke disassembled. There's your choke. It's not on there because it operates that. There's your heat spring that works on temperature to bimetal spring. So the hotter it gets, the further it goes around. And it just opens and closes the choke. There's your float. And that's just a bracket that holds the one of the heater hoses. It sits right there. It just holds the hose in place. But right now I'm trying to use this parts washer for the first time. I'm just waiting for it to heat up, and then see how it works. Got it filled with some purple soap and water. I'll dip this in there. This is just full of jets, so you can see them, all the little itty bitty pieces. That did come with the kit. I've got to get the little tray that fits in there, the little basket, wire basket. I'll see if I can get one online. It's a little bit small, but it was brand new. I think I paid like 40 bucks for it, so it was worth it. So I've got the temperature set. I'm going to get it nice and hot because this thing is baked in dirt. Another thing, some of these, I'm sure, this carburetor here, so put this next to this one like that. That's how it goes. In the later ones, there's actually a ball bearing in here, so you got to be careful. This one will have the ball bearing in it. It's a little one-way valve stop. There's two little jets in here. It's kind of hard to point. But in here, there's normally, in the later ones, there's a little ball bearing that fits in there. So be careful if you're disassembling a later one like this one here. I had some carburetors torn apart. I actually threw them out. I could have shown you the part. But there is a little bit of subtle differences. So yeah, so watch for that ball bearing in the later ones. You guys are working on like 72 and upwards, because this carburetor did change a few times over the course. There's actually, you can see a ball bearing in there. It's a one-way valve for the accelerator pump. It's held in place with that little spring. There's a little spring that goes around in there. I'll pull that out because I've got to clean all the passages out. So I'll pull that spring out and that ball bearing. But yeah, but like I say, don't crank these filters. I'll show you with the filter. It'll show, but see, that's on a taper. So it tapers and tightens up when it goes in. So don't over tighten these, because if you crack this, you might as well throw the carb out. I mean, most guys will probably replace these with a letterbrock or a Holly anyway, but if you're trying to stay original, it screws in there. Yeah, you will crack it in here, and it'll just puke fuel everywhere. And that's the needle and seat, the main one, and then the secondary one is here. So how it works is, so when it right now it's open, the needle's not in there, but because plus this is upside down. So when it's open and it drops down, it opens that needle and seat, and this one is spring loaded. So when it's really low on fuel, it pushes that secondary needle and seat open. And for some reason these cars just flood out. I know it's whether it's just too much fuel gets in there or this one just doesn't seat, but you'll often get that these carbs flood. So getting rid of that needle and seat helps it a lot with starting and reliability and flooding issues. But there's hardly anything to these carbs. They're pretty simple. So that's how they work. So I'll wait for this ultrasonic cleaner to heat up, and then start dipping. I'm going to have to do one at a time because I actually put one in there. It does just fit in there, sitting in there, but I can't get two halves in there, so I'm going to have to do, and it only runs for 30 minutes. That's seconds, but yeah, it's coming up in temperature. So that's one of these carburetors. The fuel, it's not blocked. That's the original fittings on it, so it was original hose. I've got hose. I'll use the original fittings. There's nothing wrong with these. Right. So that's it. Like I say, they're pretty simple. I've got the secondaries to work. So if you open and close them now, these work now. It did work before. But I'm going to have to pull all this apart and clean it in here, get all the gunk out of it, because that's what's wrong, and spray some lube in this secondary shaft. See, that's how it works. See, it's loose. That's your primaries. See, there it goes. Do that. Now they're working. That was stuck before. So you would have had a gutless wonder trying to full throttle this car on 2-barrel. I'm not going to pull the bottom plate off. There's no need to, because there is a third piece that actually it separates here, but there's nothing in between there unless I want to take all this apart. But I'm trying to avoid that because it's a nightmare trying to put all this back together, and you don't really need it. And that is your fast idle for when you kick on the AC. So it kicks the idle up a little bit so your vehicle doesn't stall when it's trying to run the AC. And the AC runs all the time on these, so I don't know why they bothered putting this on there. The pump never switches off unless you disconnect it. So wait for that thing to warm up and see how it works. Got the top half of the carburetor cleaned up. Just a couple little spots here and there, but it came up pretty damn nice. And I got the little parts cleaned. And here I've got the accelerator pump. Remember when I pulled it out, it was rock hard. Look, nice and soft again. Brought it back to life. Just soak in a little bit of thinners, and then it brings it back to life. And once it's sitting in gas, it'll stay soft. Oops, sorry. I just dropped the other half of the carburetor in there. It doesn't quite fit, so I'm going to have to do a couple of turns. I've got the water heating up. It doesn't really want to go any higher than this, but it's pretty warm. That's Celsius too. But it definitely, because when I put this in, this was completely covered in black crud. So it did a nice job of cleaning it up. I just got to go around there with a little brush and just take the little remnants off in the corners. And it's going to look good. Hopefully nothing's blocked. I'm going to blow air through everything. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm getting there on the carb. I should have this car running tomorrow, if it runs. And that water is definitely black. It's cooking away, so it's doing its job. Well, I'm really happy with that sonic cleaner. It did a great job. Look at that. This thing was absolutely caked. and grime. Now it's nice and clean. Yep, definitely be using that thing again. And all these parts come up nice and clean too. Get everything set it out. So I'll reassemble it, and then I'll do this this secondary needle and seat. Modify that. But getting there. Yeah, like I say, I'm really happy with that sonic cleaner. I've never used one before. Most workshops don't have them. I never had one at any of the shops I worked at. I worked for Chrysler, Toyota, and also worked at a restoration shop in Phoenix when I lived up there. And I never used a sonic cleaner. So yep, really happy with it. Now I'm not going to throw that out, but I'm going to filter it and reuse it, put it back in. There's a lot of gunk in the bottom because I drained a little bit out because I thought I'd lost these little guys here, but I did find them. I put them in that little cup. I thought they may have slipped through the side there, but they were just all stuck together. So where's that ball bearing? That's the ball bearing for the accelerator pump. It goes in here. And now if I I've been soaking that in lacquer thinners. It is all nice and soft. So I shove that in there. Should hear it pump. Let me put that in there. Just put a little bit of grease around it. Come on, get in there. Yeah. I need to do those two hands before I ruin it. Anyway, it goes in there, so it should accelerate. It should squirt fuel. I even threw the filter in there, blew it out both ways. I still got to run the air through all these ports, blast the air out, clean them, and clean these two jets. Yeah, that's about it, I think. The only thing that's kind of messed up is the fast idle. I don't know if I'll put it back on because my other cars didn't have it, this fast idle. Because the rubber end is all rotted away. I usually just set the idle, so I turn the air on and then set my idle. So I may just take that off, leave it off. This car doesn't have to be exact. It's not going to be a trophy winning car or anything that it has to be 100% correct, but I think I will just delete this. And just give it a good blowout with the air and reassemble it. Yeah. But I'll make a video on this thing here. Okay guys. Started reassembling the carb. There's a bit of oil in here. I was going to try and salvage this accelerator pump. Then I remembered I got a carb kit and I got a brand new accelerator. So that'll be good. So I've got a gasket. Use that. That's for the choke. I'm not sure which one. Here's the ball bearings and stuff I need. Little tabs that go on the ends of these cables. Little clips. If I lose them, I do have a box of them. There's a new needle and seat. That's the one I'm going to modify. So if I mess this one up, I've got another one. And that's the main needle and seat there. So I'll reassemble this. There's not much to it, guys. Just put these two jets in, put the accelerator pump in here, and where are we? This thing goes in here like so. It goes in there. That's about all there is inside here. Just like I say, some of them have ball bearing. This one has a little needle and seat. That's why there's 2 ball bearings in there in that bag. One is for the accelerator pump, for a one-way valve kind of thing, and the other one's for that ball bearing that goes in here, but this one has a needle and seat in it. And it does work. I did put the old one in. It's a little tight. Probably swelled it up too much, but you can already see it's pumping, squirting. So when this is sealed off, it squirts fuel in here, comes out of these little ports here. It just sprays fuel in there. Pretty basic. Little metering rods there. I've got to put these 2 little rods back in. They fell out. Fit them back in. They go inside these tubes. And that's all there is to it. And then just putting it back together, figuring out how these rods go. If I get stuck, I can always look at another carburetor. So this is just a little spray. I used some lube so that accelerator pump wasn't dry going in, but I'm going to switch it out for a brand new one. I'll put that new one on it. I actually got given this kit from one of the club members on Facebook, the Mark III Continental Club. He actually had a Lehman Peterson limousine. And this is the tab off it. He had a 68, and I can see it's C8. He said this kit didn't fit, so I'm not sure what sort of carb he had on his, so he gave it to me. He was actually the owner of that car. He had a limo. He just sold it. We were going to do a trade back. I was going to trade this car back, but he really wanted a cash offer on it, and somebody did offer him some cash. So, but I'm not too upset about it. I would have liked a Lehman Peterson 68 limo, but his car had been crunched in the nose. Pretty sad story. He needed a little bit of body work done to it. He took it to a body shop, and some kid in the body shop started it up, started driving it, didn't realise there was no brakes, and the front end was all smashed. So that's why Paul sold it. He was just so upset about the car being wrecked, and the car was beautiful, black on black. Both front fenders were crushed in, and as you know, on those earlier Continentals, everything up front's all welded on. You can't unbolt the fenders, so Paul said screw it, just sell it. He said he was too upset to carry on with it. I would have liked to have had it, but never mind. So let me put this back together, and I'll put most of it back together and just leave this thing till last, and then I'll make a video on this. So I've got that needle and seat here. So what you've got to do is with a little screwdriver or a pin, knock the actual needle out. There it goes. It's just held in there with 2 little crimps. So now all you've got to do is just solder it shut. I usually do it from the inside, because if you do it from here, you still got these holes here, so the fuel will still come spraying out. So you do it from the bottom side. You want to put it too tight, because you don't want the heat to dissipate into the vise. You want to try and get that warm so you can get the solder in there. So get the bottle. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, because it'll fall through. Heat it up. You don't want to heat it up too much. Just put that in there. Heat the solder up, let it drip in there. There it goes. You can put a bit of flux in there too, just to help it flow. Mix up a little flux. It's sitting out, it's kind of dry on top. A little flux in there. This helps it stick. Okay. Just fill it up. Let it flow in there. There it goes. Beautiful. Done. It's still a little warm. Psst. Just make sure it went in. It filled it all up. Got a little pick. I think I see a little gap here. Nope. It's no, it's sealed. Yuck, it tastes disgusting. That's all you do. Where's the little pin? Find it. It's heard it fall on the ground. Yeah, it's probably gone. It's a tiny little pin. So, I mean, if you really want to, you can file that smooth and clean it up. But there's no need to, really. That's all you do it. That's how you get rid of that secondary. Turn that off. I always take these off because I had one leak out. It's actually this one here. Started leaking on me. I always take them off. I've actually been shopping around for another camera, an actual video camera, instead of using my phone. I just got to make sure we see everything. Yep. So then you just screw that back in there. When I take them out, I've actually modified a little screwdriver, because on this new one I'll show you. Let's open this up. Pull that gasket off there. Here's the old gasket, but I'll also use this new one. Come on. So when you try to remove this pin doesn't go down, it goes out. See, this one's the opposite of this one. This one's always open, this one's always closed. The way this float works, it works in the opposite direction on this. It always holds it closed. And then when you run out of, this is actually upside down because it's like that. It goes like that. But then when you run out of fuel, it opens this one and lets in 2 lots of fuel. But I modified a screwdriver, cut a little slot in it because that pin doesn't go down, so you can get the jet out without destroying it. I mean, if you wanted to keep it original, but it's just easier to get it out. But now it's gone, you don't really need it. So put the gasket on, screw it in. Regular screwdriver now, you can just screw it back in. I've already put the new Lincoln seat in the other one, primary. I can't remember who makes the little kit for it. There's a little bolt you can put in there, a little cap. So that's it, really. I put the two rods back in there. They're back in. Now I just got to put the two halves back together. Get the gasket. Make sure this one does fit, because there is a couple of variations on these gaskets. Pop that one out. Yep. Beautiful. Has that one got that little slot like that? Yeah, it does. I was just looking at here, there's a screw hole, but there's, where's the little screwdriver? Where are we? This is actually ovaled. There's a screw hole. I was wondering if that's normal, but it is, because the old gasket's the same. I'll save that gasket for an emergency. It can still be used, but I've got the kit, so I might as well use it. I just need to lube up these butterflies before I start assembling. Just put some lube in all the, because using the parts washer, it's completely dried it out. There's another thing too, guys. If you're using, I've seen guys do it. There's a difference between carb cleaner. This is not carb cleaner, but a can of carb cleaner and brake cleaner. Don't use carb cleaner on your brakes, because carb cleaner has lubricant in it for this. I've seen guys do it. You got oil all over you. Not a lot of oil, but there is some lubricant in it. So I just move them around. I've already done this one. I've already lubricated that one. Let's take this off. Don't need that yet. Get the choke lubricated. Nice. Okay. Put that back in. Put this in here like that. There's a little brass pin that goes in here. Yeah. So you see what I mean? This is always closed until I hit the throttle and I drain out all the fuel, and then it opens up a secondary Neyland seat. And where this one is always open, then I close it when it fills up. So this opens, they work in opposite direction of each other. And that's about it really for a carburetor. I've already blown it out with air. Did that off camera. And I did put the new accelerator pump on, and it works good. Just put a bit of oil in there, won't hurt it. And you watch it. It shoots that fuel out. Yeah, beautiful. Normally I'd be shooting out there. I can't quite do it with my fingers like that, but because my there's a little rubber washer in here that kind of gives that plunger a little bit of room to move up and down. But trying to hold it with my finger, I'm pushing down on that Neyland seat and it's not coming up. Otherwise it'd be spraying fuel in there. So I've just got the body sitting on top. One unusual thing about these carburetors, I don't know why Ford did this. I forgot to mention it earlier on. You've got all your screws that go in the top. For some reason, Ford, they're all Phillips heads. In here, I don't know why Ford used a regular slotted screw. It goes in this part here. I don't know why they did this, because all the other screws are the same size, and then this one is a little bit longer. Get a magnet, pull it out. Let's see what I mean. See, I don't know why they did this. It's not a mistake that someone did this. All the carburetors have this same feature. Yeah, so it's kind of strange. So we just put it all back together. That one off, got to put the tag on that one. Here. Here. What am I missing? Got one more. Oh, one for the tag, of course. And that one there's for the tag. Yeah, just screw it all back together. And put all the levers back on. It's good fun. Not. So this one here is for the accelerator pump. It goes here like this. For that. That's how you work the pump. Oh, actually, sorry, it's this one. There's a lever that one of these rods come up, and you got to lift this up and put that in there. I've actually still got to put the spring in it. Yeah, so that's how the accelerator pump works. So I'll take this off. Anyway, I'll get back to putting this thing back together. Got the carburetor all reassembled. The only thing I did have to do was replace the spring. As you can see, the spring was stretched. And that's for the kick down. It's just a spring to bring the kick down back into place. But it's all working. Now the secondaries don't open until the choke is open. So if you open the choke, then the secondaries open. I don't know if you can see that. So while it's running on choke, they don't open. And I've got the choke set on the leanest setting because here in Arizona we don't really need it. So as soon as it warms up, it's going to pop open. The way to adjust it is undo these 3 screws here, and you just turn it, and when you're turning it, it opens and closes. So if you want it tight, for colder weather, you want to bring it, see these little notches here, and there's a little tab in here, so you can bring it right round to rich. I've got it set right to lean, so it takes quite a while for this choke to open before it releases. And then there's a heat tube that goes down here into the manifold, and also the heater hose sits here, and that warms up that bimetal spring, and that moves it. So it's all ready to go. I did put this thing back together, but it's I don't think it's going to work. So I'm not worried about it. So I just got to find a new piece of hose. Cut a piece of hose off. It's about 3 or 4 inches long. Excuse me. Clamp it back onto the car. But I'll do that tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to fire this car up. I've got to go and get some gas too. I've only got 2-stroke gas, and I don't want to dump 2-stroke in it. I did have to use this one as a diagram because I always forget which way these springs go. because that's how they're supposed to go, but they actually bind. I don't know, it was a kind of a poor design. That's the file there. Kind of rubs on here, but that's how it was. Same as that one, but this one doesn't have that dash pot. Oh, I've got to split that pin out so it doesn't come off. These are just little tiny little pins that hold them in place. There's another one up here. I've already separated that one. I forgot to do that one. So, ready to go. One nice clean carburetor. And some leftovers. That's the old Neyland seat. Goes like that. Just up and down. There's a little rubber tip in there for, you know, still people that don't know how to work. Because I know most guys will say, oh, geez, I know that. But there are still people learning and they don't know how this works. So it just goes in there. And then the fuel is pushed in through here. And when you push that down, that little rubber pin, get in the light, that rubber pin stops the fuel from passing through. So that's how a Neyland seat works. And the float just goes up and down. So it opens and closes as fuel is needed. And the same with this one, but this one's the opposite. This one's always closed. You can actually see the little pin in there. It's just held in with a crimp. And that's the accelerator rubber. It's cracked. It's a good thing I did have it. It did work, but it was combining a little bit. I swelled it too much. I left it in the finish for a little bit too long. I left it in there for about 20 minutes, probably 5-10 minutes just to soften it up would have done. Because it's actually already, I can see it's already shrinking back to size. It was way too big. It was binding really bad in here. I had to really push it up and down. This should just move freely. So tomorrow, put it on and I'll show you how to prime the carb. You know, guys, just pour gas down here. You don't need to. I think I did find one of my bottles. Yeah, here it is. It's my little gas bottle. So you just fill that with gas. And you just stick it in there. Just fill it up. You'll see the fuel split. Actually see it split out here. Same with this one. Because these are breather vents. They just go straight down into the bowl. So you don't have to turn the car over and over and over just to get that fuel up into here. You can just fill it up with one of these bottles. So I'll show you how to do that tomorrow. But it is now, what is the time? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm ready for bed. Went into town, had to get some hose. I only had 3/8 and this is 5/16. Vacuumed around the intake there, cleaned up some of the dust and dirt. So now it's time to throw the carburetor on. I've got some gas. Went and got the belts for it as well. I'll throw belts on it so I can leave it running. Otherwise it's going to overheat in no time with no cooling. So I put the carburetor on and let's see if this old girl will fire up. Went into town, had to get some hose. I only had 3/8 and this is 5/16. Vacuumed around the intake there, cleaned up some of the dust and dirt. So now it's time to throw the carburetor on. I've got some gas. Went and got the belts for it as well. I'll throw belts on it so I can leave it running. Otherwise it's going to overheat in no time with no cooling. So I put the carburetor on and let's see if this old girl will fire up. The moment has arrived. Got the carburetor installed, all plumbed in. I've got a jumper wire heading off the ballast resistor to the coil because I'm not sure if the ignition switch works. but I should be able to crank it and start it. Off camera, I'll just check the points, make sure I've got spark. I'll run a bit of sandpaper through them. But I've got my bottle of fuel, so I'll show you how to prime the carb. And fingers crossed, I've got new belts on. I haven't put the alternator on yet. I'm still figuring out the wiring, but it'll run without the alternator as long as I've got the water pump running. So I haven't put any gas in the tank yet. I'm just going to prime the carb and see if it'll fire. It'll run for a few seconds. There should be enough fuel in there for like 15-20 seconds for it to run. And then I'll dump some fuel in the tank. I just want to see if it'll fire. So let me get the points sorted out before I carry on. And then we'll hit the button. So I was looking at the points, and there's absolutely no gap. See, it's on the cam where it's opening, and there's no gap there. So I'm going to have to gap these points. Clean them up. I just use a little bit of wet dry sandpaper. It doesn't take much. Just to clean off the corrosion if they've been sitting, especially if they've been sitting open. They get a little like a white powder inside them, and they won't spark. But let me get them set, and then we'll go from there. So I was looking at the points, and there's absolutely no gap. See, it's on the cam where it's opening, and there's no gap there. So I'm going to have to gap these points. Clean them up. I just use a little bit of wet dry sandpaper. It doesn't take much. Just to clean off the corrosion if they've been sitting, especially if they've been sitting open. They get a little like a white powder inside them, and they won't spark. But let me get them set, and then we'll go from there. I've set the points. Recommend 17 Fair. And there's a good spark there. So we're good to go. I do have it jacked up in the rear end with the wheels off the ground, just in case there's something wrong with the transmission. It's stuck in gear, and I try to start it, and it launches in reverse or forward, and I'm safe. Both wheels are off the ground. Okay. I'm ready, I think. Just making sure. I should disconnect that wire and crank it and see if it still sparks with the ignition switch on, because I'm not sure if the ignition is working. Let's make sure the key's on. There's just a key on buzzer. Okay, the key is on. Sorry. So I don't think we have ignition, because I did not see a spark. But the other thing I can do is probe the 12 volt into the starter. Let's see if that helps. Nope, so something wrong with the ignition switch. So, but I can start it with that wire, it's not a problem. I may need two, because I need the 12 volt to start it. I may need two jumpers, one on this side of the ballast resistor, and then one direct 12 volt to the coil, so I get a good spark like you saw when I cranked it before. So I'll get another jumper, because once it starts I can disconnect that one off the battery, and it should keep running. So I've got the bottle filled up. Just let me collapse this tripod down. The is how you fill them up. Stick that in there. Spray the squeeze. That fills up the bowl. You can do both. You don't have to do both, but yeah, we're full. Give us a shot of fuel. And let's see what happens. Ready, set. Oh, battery. Battery's getting a little low. Tighten it up just a little bit. Okay, let's see what happens. Gas. It might flood, actually flood. These things are real temperamental. I need another battery. Go salvage another battery. Pull the battery out of one of the other cars. Hopefully it's got enough charge in it to crank the car. Alright, let's try. Cables are free. She wants to run. Come on. Probably got a bunch of vacuum leaks too, so it's blowing dust in my eyes. My eyes are scratched up now. Yep, she's a runner. I'm going to put some gas in it and fill it. I got about 5 gallons out there. Put 5 gallons in it. See if I can keep it running. Alright, put some gas in it and I'll be back. I've got 5 gallons in it. Topped up my bottle again. The headlight doors are opening and closing. Felt it pinch my leg before when I started her up. They're vacuum operated, so once the engine starts, the doors close automatically. Hopefully she starts pumping fuel. know you won't. What have we done? Starter motor's acting up. I know you guys can hear that. The saga continues. I'll let it cool off. Maybe that starter motor's a little hot. But it's definitely going to run. Got a good connection there. It's a brand new starter, guys. It's dead. I'm going to have to take it back. Because when I bench tested it, when I first got it, it only wound about 2 clicks of the button and then it stopped. And now it's doing it again, so I'm going to take the starter mode back. Damn it. Well, that's the end of this for now, but at least we know it runs. Just got to fine tune it now. I haven't even set the timing yet. I set the points, but not the timing. Get the timing light out. Damn, starter motor. Damn it all. It's life, guys. That's what happens. I think it's the solenoid that's bad, because I'm not hearing the solenoid throwing out. I can hear it just move, but it should be clacking like a clack clack. It's not doing that. So I've got to climb underneath and pull the damn thing out again. Send it back, get another one. Where's the time? It's too late. It's too late to call now. Put another one. Well, that's as far as we're going to go tonight. I can't do anything else until I get that starter motor out. Screw the power up, turn that off. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the video, but I'll put that on. There is no loud click of the starter motor. Hear that? There's just a that's a brand new starter. It sucks. It's a couple of hours later. I went inside and had something to eat at dinner time. I just thought I'll let the starter motor cool off just in case I did just overheat it, and I did. The starter motor was just too hot. So now I turned so let's see if she'll start. exhaust leak somewhere. Burn the oil off the exhaust manifold. Leaks a little bit. Hear a lifter clapping every now and then, so you guys can pick that up. Well, let's see what happens if I put it in gear. I can get that wheel to turn. The shifter's not working properly. We're going to figure out what's wrong with the shifter. It doesn't want to move out of park. Feels like it's jammed somewhere. Running smoothly, and then give it a little time. It'll smoothen out a little bit more once it settles down. Yeah, I'm happy with the engine. It's fired right up when I hit the key. Let's see if it should fire back up. Oh yeah. Beautiful. So that'll do it for tonight. I'm getting fumed out. I've got the doors open. It's night time. Got the fan running in the back door. It's already 20 after 9 in the evening. But yeah, I like how she just fires right on the click of the key. As soon as you hit that button. Beautiful. I've still got to adjust the idle mixtures. I usually just wind them out, 2 full winds to start with, and then I'll fine tune them the idle air mixture. Doing a temperature test. 153 Fahrenheit. That's good. 146. Get the bottom hose. 121. That's good. Well, she's not overheating yet. Good right there. Below the thermostat. Yeah. Probably got a 160 thermostat in it. It's hovering right at 160. That's good. Oil pressure is good. It's not bad for an idle. Let's see if the headlight door's open. Yep, door's opened up. Headlights. One marker light. I've got some good spare ones, so I'll replace these. See if the high beams work. See if we have taillights. Yes, we have taillights. We even got a license plate light. Yay! I'm not running the alternator, so I can't leave it on, everything on for too long. It's going to drain that battery down. Let's see if those headlights. Ooh, high beams. Yep. Got another grill out there, I can fix that one. There's like 3 separate panels that make all this up. It's not just one set. It's quite an elaborate little grill. Just hear a little lifter clapping. See if it's firing on all cylinders. 240. Yep. Yep. Yeah, that one's a little bit warmer. $250. That one's a little cold. I'll check that spark plug. 375. 131. So I'll check number 2 and number 4 just to make sure they're firing okay. I haven't even pulled the plugs out, so who knows what the plugs look like. But no, I'm happy. The ignition switch does work. I just can't start it with the key because I disconnected that plug because I'm not sure about the system. And the doors close. Yep. They'll slowly leak back open again. Yep, that one there's starting to sneak up. There's a vacuum leak. It's usually the, there we go, that one's popping up. It's usually the actuators. The back of the actuator has a little seal, like a little bellows seal, and they usually crack and leak out. But at least they do close when I turn the headlights off. Yeah, this car is not in the best of shape. I see a bit of Bondo there. No, this fender is not original. I see black paint under there. This car has been repainted. There's black paint there. Yeah, a lot of, it's had at least had one respray, maybe two. So. But yeah, if she runs and drives, might do a little bit of rust work on it. There's not a lot of rust on this. That's not bad for one of these. Yeah, the roof is pretty simple. Just cut that patch out. Yeah. I don't think this is rusted through yet. Might just be able to wire wheel that and treat it. Some poor 15. It looks worse than it is. And this side's in better shape. Yep. Yeah. One thing I learnt with these cars, if it was an unpainted roof, I mean an non-vinyl top, this was filled with lead. If it had a vinyl top, they just use body filler. That was something I learnt recently, because this is just filler. So only the painted roofs had lead. I don't know why they did that, but maybe there's some sort of chemical reaction in the cloth, because it's not glued in here. Only the top's glued. It's only glued up to here, and this is loose, and there's screws holding the vinyl top down. It's glued here, but not on these padded sides. These have a real soft pad. Noticed I was missing an emblem, one emblem, but I have some spares. I've got 2 or 3 sets of taillights, so I can replace that busted one. And I'm missing the Mark III emblem down there. I haven't tried the wipers yet. These are hydraulic wipers. They run off the power steering pump. But yeah, I'm happy. It's running. So, I know I said it before, but I'm going to sign off now. Disconnect the battery. Tomorrow I'm going to look at the linkage, see what's wrong with the linkage. See why it won't come out of park. It may have something to do with the ignition switch, with that connector and that as well. There's definitely something wrong with the column. The steering's locked and the shifter is locked. Because I can't get it into reverse, it just doesn't want to move. See, oh, no, see, it's stuck. So, I'll figure that out tomorrow. But I saw I brought it over a little bit because I can bring it over just a little tiny bit. And I saw the wheels start to turn in reverse, so I'll figure that out tomorrow. And I can probably idle it around the yard with no brakes. We've got a loop I can drive around on the property. Just idle it. One of the front tyres is really badly cracked on the inside. I noticed it when I was laying underneath. This tyre here has got a huge dry rot crack in the back. So I can't take it anywhere. And that's not the wheel off it, because I had trouble getting that wheel off and getting it back on again too. Yeah, so that's cool. And I need to do this. It's a headlight for my Kia. Somebody cut me off at an intersection and took my headlight out. I got to replace it. It's been sitting there for about a week now. I need to check it. Let's do it now. Grab it. Just got to make sure it's not busted, and I'll leave a good review on it. Oop, blade fell out. doing this with one hand, holding the camera. It's all wrapped up. Come on. That's nice. Oh, it's even better than I thought it was. Okay, I'll put that in tomorrow. I'm getting sick of driving around with a headlight covered in tape. It's been like that for about 6 months. Alright, quick zoom around. Had a couple of comments. People really like this blue car. I stole the battery out of it. I can have a look around it. It's weird, this upholstery in the camera, because I can see in the camera, it comes up like grey, but it is a dark blue, but for some reason on the camera it changes colour. It's a very soft kind of nylon. These cars, these seats with the cloth interiors are really nice to sit in, a lot better than the leather. Car's not perfect, like got vandalised. Yeah, it does drive nice. I've got to do something with the transmission in it. Either rebuild it or pull one out of the other cars, because it's got a common problem. C6, it's got a bad O-ring and it won't move or shift until it warms up, so you can sit there for like 5 minutes idling away, and then all of a sudden, boom, it goes into gear and it's good. You just drive it all day, nothing happens, but when it's cold it just doesn't want to move. And I've researched that it is a common problem with the C6. It's amazing, this car's pretty clean. It's got a couple of little paint faults on it, but I got this car out of Wisconsin, and look, that's solid metal. It's no rust. There's one little rust spot here that I know of. It's probably just chip paint, and it got, in the winter time, got a bit of salt on it. And there was one other little spot I found in the door. There's a spot in the door right there. Looks like they touched it up with a bit of paint. But apart from that, this car is clean. It's low mileage. I think it's 54,000 miles, 56. They all seem to be around that mileage. 55, isn't it? Yep, 55,000 miles. Alright, I'm happy. She runs.